What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and recently we have had a video update over the subject on everyone's mind when it comes to Diablo 4, and that's going to be its endgame loop. In that video we get a bunch of info ranging from what to do at max level and still looking to increase our power, to places we can farm and what will keep our interest ready for that season pass and its unlocks. So we're going to discuss it all, talking about how it's affects us as a player and point out items you may have missed from your first watch. And if you find any of this helpful and you want to see more from us at Babylon, consider subscribing and hitting that like button. But now that's out of the way, what are we waiting for? Let's get the video started. Now in the video, Capstone Dungeons were discussed, but unfortunately not in enough detail to the point where you know exactly what to expect inside of them. What we did get though was the importance that Capstone Dungeons hold, as completions for these are how we get to be able to progress in world tiers. In the betas we had instant access to tier 1 and tier 2, with the difficulty and XP gains increasing in tier 2, rewarding the players for taking that extra challenge. It stands to reason we would see the same applying here for the higher tiers, where 3 would increase the benefits and hindrances over 2, and tier 4 would look to be able to increase that even further. While the 5th world tier wasn't present in the beta version, and Blizzard have previously stated that there would be 5 in the game, so it could be fine-tuned ready for launch, and purely not present due to no player having the chance to be able to go past world tier 2 in the betas. But what we do know from info online is that World Tier 3 is locked behind finishing the campaign and completing the Cathedral of Light Capstone Dungeon on World Tier 2. Completing activities on Tier 3 will then reward the player with stronger enemies, but also 100% experience boost from enemy kills and 15% increased value in gold drops, helping to be able to afford those expensive refinement upgrades at the blacksmith. On top of this, sacred and unique items along with nightmare sigils can now drop, but we'll touch more on the sigils shortly. Tier 4 on the other hand is unlocked through completing everything to unlock Tier 3, as well as completing the Fallen Temple Capstone Dungeon on Tier 3. In addition to what Tier 3 now drops, Tier 4 allows players to be able to obtain ancestral items, which in previous Diablos were more powerful versions of uniques, either offering increased effects on their special abilities or stronger stats for more damage when equipped. The way Blizzard have approached talking about Capstone Dungeons will mean that these will be the true test of strength for your build, allowing you to be able to prove that you can move on to that next challenge and reap the stronger items as a result. So if you're after the very best items Diablo has to offer, along with the hardest content it has to throw at you, then you best get ready. The Paragon System implemented in Diablo 4 is a new and much more interactive system compared to previous ones of putting a point into an attribute for small buffs as you level up. Instead, how the Paragon System here works is basically a board game, allowing you to be able to move on whatever path you choose from one end to another, building up point by point until you're ready to be able to move on to an adjoining board to continue this over and over again. These boards do come with a few nuances though, each with different patterns and paths, but also having some consistency to them, with a legendary node in the centre of each one, offering potentially powerful buffs. Let's have a look at the tiles to see what we have to deal with so that we can maximise our efficiency and pick correctly. First up, we get normal tiles offering small stat boosts with pluses 5s to our main initial attributes for strength, intelligence, willpower and dexterity. Nothing too complex so far, but there are some nice boosts when we consider things like dexterity directly affecting skill damage, increasing our DPS for each tile that we do grab. Next up, we have the magic tiles being slightly more rare but offer different boosts, like for example a 10% boost to our fire resistance. It may be a case that these are our main ways to be able to build up our substantial resistances for our character's survivability at higher levels and tiers. Next up, we do get the rare tiles, offering some very tasty buffs, but also boasting a second effect should you meet their requirements. For example, one tile that exists online grants 10 Fury on kill, allowing the player to be able to stack up their resource much easier, but also if they meet the requirements of 175 strength and 125 willpower, they also get an additional 8% maximum Fury. Rare tiles are going to be fairly sought after, offering the potential for builds to have sustain without the need for basic skills and manual resource generation, but we'll see what else we have to play with nearer the time. Lastly, tile-wise, we have legendary tiles, the centerpiece of every board, bringing powerful effects to all builds. We'll need to see how generic these boosts are, as classes like Druid and Rogue sport multiple ways of playing, so we could see some dead legendary mods at all, or will there be some more generic in the sense of just damage boosts in meeting certain criteria? Will we deliberately miss legendary nodes in some builds? I suppose time will tell when it comes to that. The example that I have seen for these tiles are for barbs gaining a 30% more damage when their fury is above 50%. It's safe to say most bard builds would probably love this DPS increase with no real hindrance, but I'm very interested in what the other classes are getting too. Lastly, we get to deal with another system inside this Paragon board relating to glyphs and sockets. A powerful tool if used right, glyphs have some insane potential when placed in the right sockets, encouraging you to be able to strategize when and where you wish to place them. It's safe to assume that the sockets will be predetermined, so Blizzard will probably have looked at this from all angles to stop them from becoming broken. But speaking of glyphs though, we have a few to be able to look at online to get an idea of what to expect. It seems that these also vary in rarity, similar to that of items and the tiles previously mentioned, so the examples I have seen are a magic glyph, offering a small radius to affect nodes, but grants a 30% bonus to any node that's within its area of effect. Could these affect the extra abilities on rare tiles or the full effects on legendary tiles? I guess we'll find that out when it comes to June. We also get 2 rare glyphs, one sporting a medium radius, increasing its special effect for every 10 dexterity and range that does get picked up from nodes, increasing damage to vulnerable targets by 13.5% each. On top of this, all the nodes in range gain a 40.5% boost in stats, and when the second one that boasts a bigger radius and increases overpower damage by 31.5% for each 10 willpower that's purchased in its range. It also, instead of gaining an extra increase to stats within its radius, it also grants a further 4 strength for each willpower node that's purchased in range, giving a nice double bonus attribute wise. These sound incredibly fun to be able to plan out, and I can't wait to see what the builds we can make with these. The last info nugget that we did get with this is about the boards themselves, where if you don't like the current path on offer to you, then feel free to just rotate it around and start from another of the 4 faces. This could potentially mean that each of the faces starts with one of the main attributes, so you can decide where you want to be able to begin powering up, and giving the player some nice freedom to be able to plan their builds out for themselves. Now in the beta we did have the opportunity to try a limited version of the Codex of Power and what it can offer to builds. Each dungeon we cleared gave us an unlimited unlock of a certain aspect, giving us the consistency needed to try out builds and not have to fight RNGesus to hope the one item that makes and breaks a build then drops. This doesn't mean farming is out of the window though, as these aspects come at a base value, offering the lowest possible figure it could possibly roll. In some cases this isn't an issue as the aspect changes the skill's behaviour, which couldn't be affected by a numerical value. This then allows you to be able to hunt for the aspect to drop on gear and then extract an imprint for higher damage values. Overall, I do think it's a great system and really helps to be able to promote builds as creators, as all you need to be able to do to recreate as a viewer is complete the relevant dungeon and then you're good to be able to try this out. With over 120 dungeons to explore in the main game, it's safe to say that each will have a tied aspect to it, allowing for some easy build crafting at all levels. If you haven't experienced the Codex of Power in the beta, then what this allows you to be able to do is take any rare item you have in the game and turn it into a legendary for the cost of gold and an aspect. This aspect can either be extracted from other legendary items or can be used freely from an entry in the Codex of Power, which is a library of all your currently unlocked aspects from dungeon runs. It's generally a good idea to upgrade an item in its rare state before turning to legendary though, through these means, as the cost will increase as per the rarity it sits at. Now in the 2 betas for Diablo 4 we got to experience some of the early game loops for characters with a defined route to progress on the story, with side missions, strongholds, world events and dungeons making up the rest to satisfy your murder spree and looting needs. Dungeons were a real test of your abilities when outside of the story progress, as each dungeon challenged you in different ways to test the flexibility of your build. But World Tier 3 decides to take this up a notch by introducing the chance at Nightmare Dungeons, essentially the same activity but harder and with modifiers to run to either hinder or help your progress. In the clip we only get to see one form of modifier called Hellgate, a modifier that cranks the mob density up to 11 by pitting you against more enemies pouring out of a Hellgate at the same time as you fight the regular mobs. It's interesting to see and I can't wait for some more details on this, along with some other modifiers we'll expect to have in the full release, as there could be a potential for these to get downright insane and even make or break a dungeon run. Fortunately, you can decide when to change a dungeon to a nightmare mode by applying the sigil to a chosen area, so you don't have that surprise dumped on you, it's all at your fingertips. Now these can be applied to any of the over the 120 dungeons found in the game, meaning if you should fancy one dungeon for runs over another, then feel free to just nightmare mode your favourite and go to town slaying and butchering away. One of the other key moments for me in the video was the mention of targeted activities, bringing new opportunities to farm loot as you adventure your way through the game. Specifically, we had the two shown off, with Helltide areas offering their own special currency that can be earned and spent inside, boasting increased mob densities and more challenges, but also better looting through the opening of the area's special caches. Now, these caches are tied to a certain offering like boots or gloves, and dropping purely these items allowing you to be able to technically target farms similar to that of the obel farming method. Now, these won't come easy though, as the enemies in this area will be scaled higher than your current character and boast some tough resistances to break through. But should you manage to be able to grab the cache and open the chest, you'll surely be rewarded. Now, the other of the two activities is revolving around the Whispers of the Dead, an ancient tree tasking you with visiting areas and performing tasks for rewards. In the case of the examples, it would be taking out werewolves in a specific location, when upon return to the tree you'll be rewarded with an inventory cache of items, also similar in nature to that of the Helltide, where it's tied to a specific category of item, something like a helmet or maybe even one-handed weapons. Now, while I can see potentially the Whispers becoming tedious depending on the variety in tasks, both are still a welcome addition and will aid along with the other pieces of content to effectively farm for gear needed, as well as to be able to mix up the gameplay loop. But of course, it's now time for the big one, and that's going to be the Fields of Hatred, and these are where things will start to get spicy, offering a PvP mode that was missing in Diablo 3 and running a system similar to that of what the Division has with their Dark Zone extractions for juicy loot. How this all works is there will be a location on the current map advertised as a Field of Hatred, allowing you to choose to enter or not. Entering allows you to be able to engage other players in combat, where killing them offers a resource called Shards of Hatred. Now, these shards can be obtained from PvE elements as well, and killing beats in the zone, so it won't have to be pure PvP in here, so don't feel like you have to be pressured into that. Now, these shards can be spent at special vendors inside the zone, meaning you may want to find special items here that you can't find anywhere else. But while it may seem that that is going to be the players to go around killing other players for their shards, it's important to note that doing so will not be consequence free. Each kill of another player will infuse your character with the Curse of Mephisto. Now, this on its own won't do much, but when it's stacked up high enough, it will then become a problem, because this turns you into a vessel of hatred. Once this debuff is applied, every player in a large radius will now be notified of your rough location, granting them a bonus for being able to slay you, or should you be able to survive the onslaught, a larger bonus will be applied to your account instead. Think you have what it takes to be able to survive a server of PvP? Then this is for you to be able to prove that. Now, lastly, the Seeds of Hatred that you do collect in the zone will need to be smashed into red dust for you to be able to spend. To do this, you'll need to be able to visit an Altar of Extraction, which is a location to place your seeds in and wait for the process to finish. But you won't be alone in this, as other players will also need to visit to be able to do the exact same as you. This will put a lot of people on edge seeing another player here, and as you can just carry on as normal and keep the peace, or you could attack the player to be able to attempt at stealing their items to add to yours. However you play is up to you, and I can see the fields being a very popular place for people to be able to meet up and challenge each other in Diablo 4. And with that, it pretty much wraps it up for the video. What we want to know is how you feel about the game. Does this sound enough to be able to keep you hooked at endgame level? Are you interested in the PvP aspect? And are you planning to be able to level up all the classes to max and experience Diablo 4 to its fullest? Let us know all this and more in that comment section down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. If you want to see more from us at Babylon, then make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss out on a future video. But anyways, with all that said and done, it just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and we'll see you all on our next video.